Okay, we want to be respectful of your time, and there you can see me. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. We want to be respectful of your time. We try to give participants a few minutes past the start time to get in. We understand today is Saturday. It's hard to get up, and we appreciate you for giving us a little bit of your Saturday. We are Cafe Biz 618 shared office space. For those of you who are not familiar with us, we are located in Fairview Heights, Illinois. We thank you to those participants who are logged on thus far for joining us. And today we are talking about our Small Business 103 session. We have a once a month webinar. And today's session is going to be on business insurance. Such a great and pivotal topic to discuss. I'm looking forward to this. And we have a great guy, Mr. J.R. Bell, who is going to be facilitating this with us. So get ready. We do have some house rules for you all. Number one, your participation is so encouraged, and that is including note taking. I'm sure that he has a lot of information to give to you today, and we don't want you to miss out on it or to have that moment of what did he say when this is over. So definitely take notes. We definitely want you to ask all the questions that you have for him, and he is okay with you raising your hand or chiming in to ask a question. Please also put your questions in the chat. I will be looking at the chat periodically while he's speaking to be able to ask those questions for you. Secondly, please remain on mute until ready to speak. Third, be careful of screen share. So our screen share is enabled so that our facilitator can share his presentation, and I know sometimes others will bump that button. So please be careful of that. And then lastly, remember that you're on video. We hope to see some of your faces. I know your videos are not on right now, but if you do decide to join in with us with your faces, remember that you're on video. So be careful of the distractions behind you, or if you choose to go to the restroom, we can see you. So I just want to give you a little information about today's speaker. Again, his name is Joseph Bell, but he goes by JR, and he has been in the insurance industry since 2008. Since then, he has continued to educate himself so he can better serve his clients, earning the designation CLCS, which stands for Commercial Lines Coverage Specialist, as well as PWCA, which stands for Professional Workers' Compensation Advisor, and is currently working toward becoming a CIC, which is Certified Insurance Counselor. He is definitely a HB, which is a hubby, and he has been married to his beautiful wife, Gina, for 12 years now, and they have 4 kids together. Now, before starting insurance, JR has worked his way up the restaurant ladder to assistant general manager. When he is not working on his business, he's definitely at home with his family. So we definitely welcome you, JR. We are looking forward to all the wisdom that you have to share with us today. Now, I do have a question for you all. I have a poll, and this is going to help him get things started. So for those of you who are on the call with us right now, we have several who registered, JR, so maybe they're just waking up and they're going to get with us here soon. Is your business or organization currently covered by insurance? Yes or no? If you can mark that for me. Okay. We have some 50% yes and then no. And I will ask this question again when others get on so we can get some more feedback for you as well, JR. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen so that you can share yours. And give you the floor. I don't know how I got there. Give me 1 second here.
All right, can everybody hear me?
Yes,
Perfect. All right. Are we seeing a presentation, hopefully?
we are.
All right. Good deal. Good deal. Well, good afternoon, everybody. My name's J.R. Bell. I'm an independent broker here in the Metro East in Collinsville. Like she said, I've been doing this almost 13 years now. I've been out on my own, running my own business for the last 4. I very much focus on education and learning. I feel that, you're never too old to learn. And as this industry changes constantly, I am constantly in class to learn more so I can better help my clients. Today, I'm just going to kind of give you a brief overview, some general insurance terms, some things any business owner who's starting out needs to know, and help we kind of just steer you in the right direction. Is hopefully you all grow your business and develop and change over time. So feel free to stop me at any point in time, any questions. I will warn you, I've got a couple of videos in here. They're 2 minutes apiece. They are a plug for Hartford because Hartford made them. So just to kind of ignore that, but I take the content where I can get it. So I think the content on the videos is good, but there is a focus on Hartford. Just set that to the side if you don't mind, but they're where I get the content. So again, this is who I am. I've been doing this for a while. I actually just became a professional work comp advisor not too long ago, and I am continuing to work on my CIC. Again, better education for me means the better I can help my clients. So brief overview, what is insurance? Insurance in its purest form is risk management, plain and simple. We can carve out all the other things, all the other, they fix my car, they fix my house, all those things. But at the end of the day, insurance is all about risk management. And it's the process of identifying and managing threats so that your small business can continue without interruption or disruption. So I think that's important for a lot of people to remember, because this world changes and gets faster and faster over time. A lot of us tend to, think things are interchangeable and commoditize things, and it's not always the case. Insurance is there to make you whole at the end of the day. So you need to make sure it's a big part of your financial plan, whether you realize it or not. Because we're not all independently wealthy. We can't self-insure, so to speak, and have money sitting in the bank. So we need to make sure the insurance policies we pay for can do what we need them to do. So they should be a part of any good person's business plan moving forward. A couple general insurance policies that you'll want to be familiar with because they're important. General liability. General liability is defined as an insurance protection from a third party or property, caused by you or your employee. Every business, no matter what they're doing, what they're selling, where they're working out of, should have a general liability policy. It doesn't matter. That's the main policy that's going to respond in any given instance. And forgive me for 1 second. I'm trying to hide something here because it's a little bit in my way, and then we'll get back to it. There we go. So that's step number 1. Step number 2 is property insurance. Think of property insurance as to protect all your stuff you buy for your business. Whether it's your laptop, whether it's your your printers, you've got an office full of stuff, anything like that, any tangible item you buy for your business, it goes under business property. If you have inventory goes under there. You know what I mean? So that's not every business will have a whole lot of that, but every business has something. So you will need that. A business owner's policy, the simplest form, it's the easiest way to get your business covered. And what it does is it kind of combines general liability and property insurance and puts them under one policy for you. Makes it clean, makes it easy, makes it affordable. So everything goes under there. So you've got what you need to cover your business for a cheaper premium. Think of it as bundling. You buy things separately, generally cost you more money. You buy 2, you get a better price. So that's, in basic form, that's what a business owner's policy does. But it'll allow your business liability and your property, among other things, to be inside one policy and make it affordable for any business. Workers' compensation. Now, not every business has a need for workers' compensation. Um, People tell me workers' compensation is the insurance as defined by a small business that provides protection for employee injuries and illness. In Illinois, you can include yourself or exclude yourself. If you're a sole proprietor and it's just you in the business, you're not required to have workers' compensation. My question to you is, you're the only employee in the business. What happens when you get hurt on the job? You know what I mean? What happens when you're unable to work? Who's going to provide that income for you? You know what I mean? Can you afford to hire somebody else to take your place? These are all things a business owner needs to think about when they move forward. You know what I mean? When I started my business, it was just me. I had an office, I had a desk, and I had a dream. I had nothing else. And you got to think about, okay, well, what happens if I can't do this? What's my income look like? What's my business look like, in 6 weeks if I'm not able to be at this desk? So these are all things to consider as you grow and develop your business plan. Hired and non-owned insurance. Now, this is something you won't hear a lot of people talk about when you talk to a lot of agents, but it's very, very important. And every business, no matter what you are doing or where you are doing it from, has this exposure. Hired and non-owned insurance is a type of insurance for small business owners who rent or lease vehicles or ask employees to use theirs for company errands. So let's use a prime example. You own your own business. You drive to the bank to deposit a check that you got from a client. On the way to the bank, you get in an accident and hit somebody and severely hurt them. Your auto insurance will absolutely cover that claim without issue. What's going to happen is that attorney gets a hold of that and realizes, hey, why were you going to the bank? Making a deposit. Oh, where was the deposit from? My client. Oh, you're a small business owner? Now they're suing the small business as well as you. And the small business does not have coverage without that line of insurance right there. And it's the cheapest insurance you can buy. It shouldn't cost you more than $250, period. It's cheaper than general liability, and it's one of your biggest exposures as you drive every day for something. So you go to Sam's, pick up things. You go to the bank, whatever it is. If you do it in the course of your daily work, there's an exposure there, and that's how we cover that exposure with that policy. Commercial umbrella insurance. An umbrella policy is a blanket liability policy that sits above everything else. So it goes above your general liability. It goes above your auto or your hired and non-owned auto. It goes above your workers' compensation. It goes above all your other liability policies and provides an extra layer of protection. 9 times out of 10, what I tell my clients is, this is going to come into play when you hit somebody with an auto and you kill somebody, or heaven forbid, they become, a quadriplegic, something like that. Your auto liability limits are only what they are. You know what I mean? Say if you've got $500,000 on your auto, that's going to get expired pretty quickly in that type of claim. So the umbrella policy will come down and provide an additional layer of protection. It starts at $1 million and goes up from there. It's a very inexpensive form of insurance coverage that you can provide for yourself as your business grows. Now, not every business needs it right away. You know what I mean? We all have to be practical with balancing cash flow and coverage. Let's be realistic in the real world. But this is one of those things you want to keep in the back of your head as your business grows and your exposures grow. This is definitely important coverage as you move forward in your career. Professional liability, or E&O insurance, as a lot of people will call it. It's the same thing. Professional liability insurance is defined as a form of insurance that can help pay for legal expenses when a client's claim something you did, or more important, you didn't do, hurt them financially. Think of it as coverage for your work. If you're a consultant and you told the client, you recommended a client to do X, Y, and Z, and they did it, and the result actually hurt them instead of helped them, they can come back and sue you. And it's not covered under your typical general liabilities policy. It's going to be covered under an E&O policy. It's your professional work that we're covering in this instance. I do have a
JR,
yes,
I'm
ma'am.
sorry. Go.
You're good.
I just wanted to open up the floor at this point because I think that right now you're at a great and pivotal point for us to discuss the question that I have for you. So I'm sure that we have different industries represented on the call, and I just wanted to open the floor on what you think, according to those industries, would be the best policy for them to take advantage of, or am I moving ahead on you?
No, you're not. This is actually getting to a real good breaking point. I actually have a video coming up right here that I want to play first. It's about 2
Okay.
minutes. And then after that video, why don't we stop? We'll do a quick, because this video kind of recaps the difference.
Okay.
And then we can take questions, and then hopefully the video jogs a few questions for people, and we can go from there.
Thank you. Awesome.
All right. This will be short. And again, just, ignore the Hartford sales pitch a little bit, but the content's really important. Oops. Let's try again.
So what's the difference between general and professional liability insurance? Well, if someone trips and falls at your office, it's general liability insurance that helps protect your business. But what if custom programming services provided to a client cause that client to suffer financial damages? General liability insurance doesn't cover that. Or what if you lose or corrupt a customer's data? General liability insurance won't cover that either. The Hartford's professional liability coverage helps protect businesses from potential loss situations that general liability doesn't. Imagine this. An IT company's top client stops making payments and walks away from the contract in place. When the IT company attempts to collect the money owed, the client countersues with allegations of negligence and failure to perform. With the Hartford's professional liability coverage, the IT company is protected. We'll investigate the claim and defend the suit. Protection that general liability just doesn't provide. Understanding the difference between general liability and professional liability is important, but even more critical is making sure your business is properly protected on both fronts. For most businesses, it may also be a good idea to work with a single carrier for general and professional liability coverage. Why? With one carrier, businesses are less likely to risk unintended gaps in coverage due to differences in policy forms and language. Plus, businesses avoid possible coverage disputes between different carriers if there's question as to where the coverage lies for a claim. With over 25 years of experience protecting technology businesses, the Hartford is a smart choice for any business. Our nationwide staff of experienced underwriters, claims specialists, and loss prevention experts specialize in the unique risks that technology businesses face. Contact me to see how I can help your small business succeed.
So again, a little pitchy there, and I apologize, but I think the example is very good as to what's covered and not covered between the two. So this is a great opportunity for questions if anybody's got them.
So I definitely want us to be able to take this time to share what industries we have represented on here, and that will help guide JR as to advising what is the best policy for you. So I can start first. For example, event planning. What would you suggest would be the best policy for someone who's in the event planning industry?
I mean, so again, most of the time, industry aside, you're definitely going to need a small business policy that includes general liability, includes coverage for your equipment. You know what I mean? If you have employees, there's coverage that we need to provide there. If you have a building, that's a whole other coverage issue. But specifically to event planning, one of the things that we would look at is host liquor liability. If you're providing liquor or if you're not, we look at advertising injury, which is included in the general liability portion of the policy. It's included in there. We've got to make sure we have the proper coverage for that. And more importantly, we would sit down and we would look at your contracts that you use with your clients, what you provide and what you ask them for, because a lot of times it comes down to what did the two parties agree to, Or was this included in the contract? Was this a part of the conversation, or was it not?
Okay. Any other ladies? I don't want to shout you out and put you on blast, so I'll let you ask on your own.
I'm a visual artist.
Nice.
Awesome. Describe that for me a little bit. What exactly are you doing?
I sell prints, paintings, jewelry, sculptures.
Okay. Okay. Do you have a studio you work out of, or are you just doing it out of your house?
Out of my house right now.
Okay. And where do you sell your prints? Do you sell them online?
Online galleries, different organizations
Okay.
like the Houston airport. I'm trying to get some work that's sold to them.
Okay. How do the clients pay you?
Usually PayPal. I'm still working on ways of being paid.
Okay. Yeah, because I mean that's a big challenge for a lot of small businesses, for sure. Is how especially in today's world, how do we take payment and how do we make it easy and affordable for ourselves? One of the things to remember when you do that is when you're taking somebody's credit card information or checking and routing information, like you have an obligation to protect that information, and that's not covered under the typical general liability policy. You would need something called data breach, which provides coverage for that in the event.
What was that called again?
Data breach.
Data breach.
Yep, data breach. Another term is cyber liability.
And I will type these into the chat for you, JR.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I mean, a couple things to remember, especially in today's world, especially in Corona world right now, we're doing a lot more business over the phone and on the computer. You know what I mean? So you email clients, you provide, personal information. They provide you personal information over the phone like that, or via email. You know what I mean? It's your responsibility as the receiver to make sure those things are secure and encrypted. You know what I mean? Because if somebody hacks into your computer and steals somebody's credit card information that you have on there, you can be held liable. So those are things that we have to think about moving forward. As far as other coverage, I mean, again, general liability, especially if you've got pictures hanging in an airport or something, they're going to require you to have it. You know what I mean? Especially if you get a situation where you can put them on display, like they're going to absolutely require you to have that. Other than that, I mean, you can cover your material if you want. Situations like you can actually get coverage for the value of the painting or the sculpture. So basically what it could sell for versus what it costs you to make it. So there's conversations to be had there. Just kind of depends on what you want. If you're starting,
I also do some trying to get into commission work with cities and stuff.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And so I'm not too sure what kind of insurance I need for that.
They're going to require general liability first and foremost.
Okay.
So you want to start there. You want to start with a general liability policy. Make sure your general liability policy includes data breach. Okay, and other than that, I said if you're not worried about your stuff a whole lot, I think that's a great place for you to start.
Okay.
The concern I have for you is, hey, I've sold this commission piece and now I've got to transport it from A to B.
Yeah, that's going to be an issue.
So, I mean, those are things you have to factor out and keep in mind. Like a general liability policy is not going to cover that commission piece. You sign a contract with the city and says, "Hey, we agree to pay you, X amount of money for this piece." You agree, and part of the contract says, you agree to, make the piece as specified and deliver the piece to this building at this time. You're responsible for that piece until it gets there. And it's delivered and they've accepted delivery. So you need to make sure you have coverage for that piece in delivery. So you would have to look at what's called an inland marine policy. INLAND marine, MARINE. essentially that type of policy covers equipment and property anywhere. Okay. So when we talk about property insurance, it typically covers property of a specific location. Inland marine covers property anywhere in the world. Okay. It's a little higher cost per thousand because it's basically moving pieces, but that's the type of coverage you would need when you go to move those pieces. Okay.
Okay.
So I wish you the best of luck on that. That sounds awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you, Liz. Tanya, were you about to say anything beforehand?
Yes. Hi, JR. So I have a like a bath and body business where I do like whip soaps, body butters, and candles. So what would you suggest for insurance for that?
Are you making them?
Yes.
Okay, you make them out of your house. You have a third party making them. Walk me through that.
I make them out of my house for right now.
Okay. So you need a general liability policy, and your general liability policy needs to include products completed, which it will, but you want to make sure it's on there at a proper limit. You need coverage for contamination because you're building products that people put on their skin.
Right.
So you just need to go a little more in depth with your general liability. Are any of these products spoiled? Do they have to be kept at certain temperatures? How long do they last? Do they go bad after a certain amount of time?
Some of them do. None of them have water. So typically spoilage, no, because they're not made with water. The ones that have preservatives, and they do have the expiration dates with them.
Okay. So I would just make sure if you're labeling them yourself, make sure you have clear language on your labels. Make sure you have an attorney review your labels to make sure they're proper. You know what I mean? Because that's going to be your biggest exposure is how you label it first and foremost, making sure you have the proper warnings for information on there. But other than that, you need a general liability policy to cover your exposures there. You know, because you're more of a manufacturer. So we get into some coverage inside the general liability policy, like I said, with contamination, things like that. Product recall would be an issue you would have to deal with. So you would want to make sure your policy provides coverage for that.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Let's say you make a batch and all of a sudden you realize there was an issue with it and you need to recall that whole batch. That has to be done at your expense, and you have to notify all your clients.
Okay.
So you want to make sure you can track where your product goes or who the original purchaser of the product is.
Okay.
Okay. If we do not have any other questions
Well,
at
hey,
this,
Kiara, I have a question.
oh, okay.
Hey, JR, there are some people that are not on here, but since we have this recorded, we want to go ahead and pass the video out. I know there's several people that are caterers. So what would you recommend for those? These are, I guess, people that are doing like meal preps or doing like small catering events, and they're doing them out of their homes. So I know they probably would need at least general liability, but there's some other ones they should also have.
Yeah, general liability, the hired and non-owned auto piece that I mentioned is definitely important to them because they're driving on a regular basis for their business. Again, you want to make sure you have contamination and spoilage on those policies for them. You know, because the bigger thing there is to make sure they're labeling and having clients sign agreements that hold harmless agreements in there. My bigger concern there is the food allergies, things of that nature that are discussed, and that's spelled out in the contract itself. I mean, your goal in a contract is just to build out protections for yourself more than anything. You know what I mean? Like outside of, hey, here's the scope of work that we're doing, you also need to put language in there that says, hey, we talked about this, we're protecting ourselves. You know, we have to be our first line of defense. So caterers, that would be very important for them. You know what I mean? Because my biggest concern there is, you know, somebody with a food allergy, you know. So
Well, what about the ones that are doing just like meal prep? So they're not necessarily are doing like catering events. They're just providing, you know, like I don't know if you've seen those little meals that you can get for like, you can buy for like lunches or those kind of, so you don't really have a contract for those, you're just selling those at price.
Okay. Yeah, again, your general liability, making sure you have food contamination in there, product recall in there is important in those aspects. Now, when you're doing meal prep like that, is it just you pulling things off the shelf, putting them together for people, or kind of walk me through what's happening there?
Well, you're actually providing the menu of the different types. So you have like 6 menu items that you're offering, like say maybe one of them might be salmon and rice. And then,
Okay.
so it just be like, just a regular meal prep that
Here's
you
our
can,
6. Here's this. Here we have 3 choices for this, 3 choices for this.
and they're already cooked, and all you have to do is just take them home and you just have to microwave them.
I gotcha. Okay. Yeah. I think you're fine there with the general liability and the product recall. So,
and then I guess for my business, I need to probably look at my policy, or you may have already told me. So I guess since we are now taking credit cards, so I guess some of these other people, I know Tanya's probably taking credit cards also. So do we need to do a data breach, or if we're going through a third, like we go through QuickBooks? So all of our data is stored in QuickBooks. So do we need data breach, or is it under QuickBooks?
you absolutely need data breach, because I guarantee you, if you read the contract between you and QuickBooks, and there is one when you accept their terms, they pass all that liability back on to you. If you use a third-party vendor for credit card processing, no matter who it is, 99% of them pass the liability back onto the end user, which is the small business. So
anybody that's using QuickBooks, Cash App, or PayPal, they probably
where any of them.
Okay.
Yep. You want to do a couple things. You want to make sure, number one, you're processing the data encrypted. So you want an end-to-end encryption. So when you put that number in, when it's being transmitted, it's encrypted. Okay. So you want to make sure whatever processor you're using is doing that for you. On the back end, you need to make sure you have enough data to handle data breach or cyber liability to handle that. And there's a couple different coverages to go into that. You know what I mean? Because cyber liability, there's first party and third party coverage for defense. So that's a whole other ball of wax. Most small businesses don't need a lot because they're not running a lot through it. You know what I mean? You can get yourself $50,000 or $100,000 worth of coverage and you should be okay, because your exposure to run through there is not a lot. But, as your exposure to that grows and you start taking more credit card sales, you definitely need to look at that coverage and increase it over time as your business grows.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I mean, hackers of today attack everything. Our emails, our credit card machines, anything that's connected to a device and transmits, they can get into it. I carry a cyber liability policy for my business just for that reason. You know what I mean? Because I don't take a whole lot of credit card information. And if I do, the carriers are processing it, but we still make sure we cover it. I've got that covered. If somebody hacks my emails, which has been tried more than once, I want protection. I want to know that I've got a company back there that's going to help me solve the problem and pay for the damages that incur, But I mean, that's my biggest thing. When, once you have an event like that happen, okay, now what? Because we have to notify everybody. It's your responsibility to notify all the people. You might have to provide credit monitoring for those people. There's a lot that goes into that type of claim that people don't realize, and it can get expensive quick.
I had another question. I'm thinking about getting products made with my designs on it, like T-shirts and iPhone cases.
Sure.
What type of insurance would I need for that?
The same general liability, but more importantly, you need to make sure whatever manufacturer you work with has it. So you want to make sure your contract with the manufacturer says they have liability that's equal to yours, and that they name you as an additional insured.
Thank you.
That piece is important. Whenever you do a contract with somebody like that, you're basically, what you're asking them is, hey, I'm carrying liability, but I want to know that if something happens with this product that you're manufacturing for me, your liability is going to protect me. So when we ask them to name you as additional insured, All we're saying is you're attaching you to their policy, so their policy can defend you in a suit. Our goal is to push the liability onto them so you don't have to deal with it.
All right, thank you.
No problem.
Okay, if we have no more questions on that aspect of it, we can continue on with your presentation there.
All right, perfect. Here's just a couple general insurance terms for small businesses, things you should understand. And we actually we were just talking about this. A certificate of liability insurance is, in the simplest form, it's a document that proves you have liability insurance coverage. Okay. Somebody, will use, and forgive me, I didn't catch her name. The lady selling the art, she's trying to get her art in Houston Airport. You know what I mean? If you're going to display a piece of art there, I guarantee you, they're going to want proof that you have liability insurance. They're going to ask for a certificate of liability, okay, or a COI is what it's commonly referred to as. And all it is it's a sheet of paper. It's got your name on it as the insured, has your policy information on it, and then at the bottom, it has a holder's information, who's requesting the information. It's got their name and address. It is that simple. But it's important to have, it's important to be able to generate for the people that request it. More importantly, when you're working with somebody like the manufacturer, and if you're going to have somebody, make t-shirts or hats, things like that, you want to request a certificate of insurance from them. And that document just says, hey, this is my insurance policy. This is what it has. Saves us from sending somebody, a 250-page policy. So here's 250 pages of a policy. It's a real quick sheet that can be sent over. So it's a common use. I send out 50 a day. General liability class codes. So general liability class codes are used by insurers to classify a small business according to the risk, what they're doing. They help insurers determine the correct price and charge customers for the premium. So this is important because you want to make sure you're being classified correctly. So when it comes to general liability, your premium is going to be based on either sales, how much your gross sales are in a given year, how much payroll you have in a given year, or how much personal property or contents you have. Now that third one's a rarity. It doesn't always happen for most things. Most of us are going to be based off gross sales with what we're doing. The people based on payroll are typically contractors. People whose exposures are more about how much labor they're using than how much they're selling. Okay. So most of it's going to be based off what our gross sales are in a given year. So that's just more for your information. So when you're getting a general liability policy and you're looking it over, you want to make sure that you're being charged accordingly. You know what I mean? It's one of those things that gets overlooked a lot. Personal and advertising injury. So this is part of the general liability policy, okay? Personal advertising injury is typically an infringement on a person or businesses or intellectual rights. They can include libel, slander, or copyright infringement, okay? This is an important coverage, especially as we get into marketing ourselves and doing things, because none of us are taking the time to go to the patent office or the copyright office and make sure that what we're using isn't already copyrighted or somebody else is using it. Now I'll give you a prime example. We had a restaurant ready to open up over here in the Metro East. Guy paid $15,000 for an LED sign, had it all put up. He's 2 weeks away from opening his restaurant. He gets sued because the name of his restaurant is very similar to another name of somebody out east, and they didn't like it. So he had to change the entire name of his restaurant. He had to take down the sign, get a new one, change the menu, change everything. So, those are huge things. So, personal advertising injury, like I said, it's included in a basic general liability policy, but it's definitely very important coverage, and that's why.
I have a question on that, JR, as far as choosing the name of your business or even your logo before you are to get those things covered in an insurance plan. Is there an extra step that one should take to ensure, as much as possible anyway, that their name or logo isn't similar to someone else's?
I mean, I would start with a basic Google search and go from there. You know what I mean? So if you find something on Google that says, hey, that's awful close, or you know what I mean, that's similar, then I would get an attorney and I would have them do a search for you. Because attorneys can go out there and they can do the searches and make sure that you're not doing it. And when you do that, the bigger thing is you push, in the event that there is an issue, you push it back on the attorney. Because they did that, they should have done their due diligence and done the search.
Gotcha.
But yeah, I mean, when I was looking at the name of my business, I mean, I spent a week Googling Bell Insurance in as many ways as I could figure it out. You know what I mean? Ran 6 ways from Sunday just to see. You know, another way is whoever does your website, search domains. You know, search a couple different varieties of domains and see how, okay, does this pop up close in any way, shape, or form, you know? So,
Thank you.
I mean, that's always my recommendation to start and then kind of go from there. I don't always tell people, you don't want to incur an attorney expense if you don't have to, but if you're not comfortable with it, I would.
Thank you.
No problem. All right, vicarious liability. This is something that's not talked about a whole lot, but it is important. Vicarious liability is when you or your business are held financially responsible for the actions of another person or party. Most commonly, this is legal framework at play when you are sued over mistakes by your contractors, employees, or agents. Vicarious liability is also most commonly referred to as third-party liability. Okay? Hey, I know you didn't do it, but the guy you hired did it, so it's your responsibility anyway. So you're accepting responsibility for somebody who is basically under you. Okay? A lot of times we see this with contractors. You know, a general contractor, you know, is hired to build a house, but he doesn't do the whole house. You know, he hires a company to frame it, hires a company to pour the basement, he hires an electrician, hires a plumber. You know, he's got all these different trades underneath him. But at the end of the day, he's accepting vicarious liability by accepting the contract. Because if they make a mistake, he's on the hook for it.
So I would like to present 2 scenarios to you, and I'm just going to use and this will be brief. I don't want to keep you
You're fine.
stalled for too long. This is in scenarios for both of the ladies, Liz and Tanya's businesses. So for Tanya, let's say she's shipping a product to a customer in another state. She's done everything that she's supposed to do with getting it to the mail and everything, but then the mail carrier loses that package. So does that fall under that vicarious liability?
Not when it comes to mail. If you're shipping via the U.S. Post Office, unless you insure it, they say tough luck. So, and UPS and FedEx are very similar. You'd have to look at how they do things, but 9 times out of 10, when it comes to shipments like that, unless it's in a contract with the shipper, it's tough to win back.
So that would be something that she's probably, and Tanya, please stop me from being all in your business. I just wanted to use, you know, those who are present
Now,
as an example there.
Yeah, shipping's a little bit different beast. I know where you're going with that, and it's a challenge. You know what I mean? Because, you know, if things you're concerned about, you definitely want to have it insured and have it signed for. That way they cover it. You know what I mean? If the package doesn't get there, it's covered. So you want to make sure you're shipping properly. You know, and a lot of times if it's smaller packages, it doesn't take much to insure it. You know, especially if it's under $100, it's automatic. You know, but yeah, that's a good question.
Did you want to add on to that, Tanya, before I went on to my next scenario?
No, I was just gonna chime in with what he said. Usually if it's with under that $100 purchase, then you can add insurance with the post office.
Gotcha. And I definitely wanted to ask these questions for those who are who registered, but they did not make it with us. That way, when they see this recording, scenarios like this could be presented and help them out. And then the last question or scenario is, we'll use Liz for an example with her wanting to display her art in the airport. So if someone, as far as someone in the airport passing by, if they damage that piece, would that be considered a third party?
Yeah, not in this scenario. Because number one, that contract's going to read between her and the airport that she holds the airport harmless against anything that happens to it. You know what I mean? Now, if that third piece is damaged by somebody and they get it on video, they can go after that third person, but that wouldn't be vicarious liability at that point. That would just fall under property damage, which would fall under general liability.
Okay. So what
Vicarious
you're saying is
liability
that
is
we have to be,
you accepting responsibility for somebody under your care and control. You know what I mean? So it's that subcontractor you hired to do part of the job, or one of your employees does something. You know, you're
gotcha.
responsibility for them.
So for me, if I had someone helping to decorate.
You got it.
Gotcha.
That help?
Yes, you are on it.
All right, perfect. All right, insurance changes as your business changes. So I put this in here just for people because most of the time people get an insurance policy and they don't think about it. You know what I mean? If you've got a small insurance policy that's $800, 9 times out of 10, your insurance carriers or your insurance agent's not going to pay much attention to you. Okay, they took care of you. They're happy your business is going well. You know, you might talk once a year and there's not a whole lot of conversation going back and forth. Okay. What you forget to do is call them and, hey, I had some changes, you know, we're growing. You should always involve your insurance agent at that point. You know what I mean? If you hire employees, your whole world changes. Okay. There's a lot to go on when you hire an employee that a lot of people don't realize. You know, a lot of people will think of work comp. Oh, I have an employee. I need to get a workers' compensation policy, which is 100% true. You do. But the other piece of that is they don't think about is, hey, I have this employee I have to manage. I have to discipline. You know, what happens if that doesn't go well? There's a coverage called employee practices liability. Okay. And what that is, it's insurance, provides insurance protection for small businesses that hire, manage, and terminate employees. It covers the relationship between you and your employee. You know what I mean? Let's say you hire somebody and, you know, 6 months later they're harassing one of the other people that work there, or, you know, one of your guests. You know, you have to terminate them for harassment, and they come back and sue you. Like, I didn't do that. You shouldn't have sued me. You shouldn't have fired me. So I'm going to sue you. There's no coverage under your general liability policy for that scenario. It has to be picked up under employee practices liability. It covers sexual harassment, wrongful termination, you know, discrimination. You didn't hire me, you know, because I'm bald, you know, or you didn't hire me because I'm black or I'm white or whatever it is. You know what I mean? We can get sued for any number of things in the world today. So this piece just manages the relationship between you and your employees. It's hugely important and terribly inexpensive. I mean, typical cost for $100,000 worth of coverage is about $33 for every full-time employee you have. So not very expensive for what you get. And just to put it in real perspective, the average cost to settle a lawsuit for between an employee, even if you did nothing wrong, is about $67,000 in the state of Illinois. And that's assuming you did nothing wrong and you win. So it's a terribly important coverage moving forward as your business grows. The other thing to think about, especially in smaller shops, you know, you have a couple people and you've got one person that's come on. They're just like you. They manage the business. They allow you time to take off. They're running the show without you, things like that. Now you've grown. You know what I mean? You've done it because they're there and they get it. You know, that's a key important person to you and your business. What happens if they can't come to work anymore? You know what I mean? How's your business impacted? You know, you have financial benefit in them being there. You know what I mean? If they're not there, if they can't work anymore, what happens? So key man insurance is just simply life insurance on a key person in the business. You know what I mean? Whether it's you, whether it's a main purchase, you know, a main worker, whatever it is, you know, the insurance, you know, the business pays the premiums on it and the business is the beneficiary. You know, like in my example, I have a term policy for me for the business. If I die tomorrow, my business will get a check that goes into the company account to maintain our workflow until my wife can sell the business or find somebody to replace me, you know? And that is separate from my personal life insurance that I have for her, you know? So these are just things to think about as your business grows and move forward, you know? Especially if you're in a scenario where your income from the business is a main breadwinner for the family. You know what I mean? You need to make sure, like, hey, I need to make sure that, you know, this income sustains for a little bit once I'm not here. So just things to think about as your business grows.
I have another question for you, JR. And I definitely want, and again, if you're getting ready to talk about this, stop me. I just want to make sure that we try to cover as many bases as we can. Organizations. We have been speaking on businesses, but for organizations as well, is it pretty much the same format of insurance coverage?
Like nonprofits?
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely the same.
Gotcha.
So they're a different type of risk, but they're in my world, we treat them the same. Not everybody likes to do them, but the coverage is going to be the exact same. The exposures are the exact same. I mean, they have a little more challenge because of how they garner their revenue. But yeah, if for a nonprofit standpoint, it doesn't change a whole lot. And
for profits, would that pretty much be ran as a business?
Correct.
Gotcha.
Now, I've got a short little video here on employment practices. I just want to share with you to kind of drive that point home a little bit, if you would.
To you, it was just a joke, an innocent comment that came out wrong, or you lost your temper temporarily. You really didn't mean it. After all, it was just between you and your employees, and they're like family, right? The next thing you know, an employee is suing you for discrimination or sexual harassment. Or consider this: times get tough and you have to make some tough decisions. No one would sue for wrongful termination or retaliation, would they? Could they? Disputes that used to end with a conversation and a handshake are now ending in a courtroom. It's why the Hartford's business owner's policy not only comes with employment practices liability insurance automatically, it includes coverages that provide most employers with the kind of protection they need today. Coverages like third-party protection. It covers claims by certain non-employees. So if a vendor, service provider, or customer sues for discrimination or harassment, you're protected. On most policies, we also include wage and hour defense coverage, which is coverage for your defense costs if you're sued for failing to pay overtime because you mistakenly misclassified a job, or for certain other wage-related lawsuits. Some insurance policies allow an insurance company to invoke a hammer clause, forcing you to accept a settlement or pay the difference if the claim settles for more. Our EPL coverage has no hammer clause, giving you more freedom to defend yourself with less fear of financial consequences. But the fact is that employment-related lawsuits can be costly, very costly, win or lose. And while we automatically include more EPL protection than some carriers, it may not be enough to handle today's lawsuits. So we've made it economical to increase your EPL coverage limits. At the Hartford, increasing limits also comes with access to extra services, like being able to have lawyers review your employment practices and procedures, and having access to a website filled with training tips to help you avoid lawsuits. These days, employees suing employers is just a fact of being in business. It's why every business owner should learn more about the Hartford's employment practices liability coverage. Contact me to see how I can help your small business succeed.
And again, sorry for the Hartford plug, but they do the videos, so we just take them. So I just want to open up any more questions. If there's something we haven't talked about that has been on your mind as far as insurance related, You know what I mean? If you've got a scenario you want to talk out, let's talk it out.
For my visual art with the general liability, I have that because I have a property that I own. Will I have to get a separate one for the visual art, or could I combine it?
Okay, so you have a piece of property that you own.
Yes,
Okay. Is the property the name of the business, or is it in your personal name?
it's in my personal name.
Okay, so the policy, the general liability policy is in your personal name, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Now, do you do business as your personal name, or do you do it as an LLC? How do you do it?
Currently I have a DBA, but I'm looking into getting an LLC.
Okay. What I will tell you is you need to have a conversation with your agent at that point. If you have a general liability, a business general liability policy for that property, it may cover it. But
Okay.
what's the property doing? Is it rented out to others? Is it just?
Yes, it's renting.
Oh, then it absolutely will not cover what you're doing because that's a
Okay.
completely separate risk.
All right. Thank
So
you.
yeah, two different type of risks there. So that one where you're renting it out, the general liability is based on, the number of renters you have. This other one, you would have to have a completely different code and make sure it's appropriate to your art. So
Okay. Thank you.
no problem.
JR, I had a question about the business interruption insurance. I guess that's the new thing now because of COVID-19. So I guess
Yeah.
it may not have been as popular before, but I guess it's now in the foreplay. So if you could, unless you've already talked about this and I may have missed it, can you kind of give us a brief scenario?
No, I didn't. I meant to put that in, and I didn't get a chance to because I have 4 kids, and they were constantly interrupting. So business insurance or business interruption, it's called business income, is how it's commonly referred to. What it says is, okay, I have a loss. I'll use an ice storm. So we have an ice storm here, power's down for 3 days. Okay. My business can't open, we can't operate. All right. So business income will provide coverage for the lost revenue for those 3 days. Okay. So we'll provide you based on your last year's money at the same time frame. We'll pay your income for those days down because of a power outage. Okay. And what the problem is, and why why you're seeing a lot in the news right now, it's not being covered by COVID because inside business income, there has to be a physical loss. In a lot of cases with COVID, there's no physical loss. This coronavirus is not causing a physical loss to any business. We're being shut down by the government because for safety, but there's no damage to my building. There's no power outage. There's no ice damage. There's no damage. There's no fire loss. That provides a physical damage to my business that makes it cover my income. So there's no reason for the policy to respond in COVID, which is why it's being denied by everybody. Now, I am of the belief that will change over time here in the next year. It'll become the federal government will cover pandemic insurance moving forward once they work all things out, just like they do with flood or terrorism. That'll more than likely what happens. But in the meantime, there's no coverage because there's no physical damage to a business.
So I guess that insurance would only be good for maybe a restaurant if they had a fire or some kind of business like that, or any
Think of
business.
restaurants, grocery stores, those places, retail shops. You know what I mean? Where you have a physical location you have to go into. Most of the time, it's harder for businesses, consultants, people working out of their house, things like that. That coverage isn't necessary. It's a lot harder for that coverage to come into play because your scenario. You know what I mean? Let's say I run my business out of my house. If I have a house fire, well, chances are I'm going to be up in another location and running soon. But what could happen there is, okay, I work out of my house. I have a house fire. Well, we're living in a hotel for 6 weeks, but I can't operate my business out of a hotel. There's not enough room for us, let alone my office, you know? So now we have to go rent office space. The business income portion will include an extra expense for you to go rent that office space.
Okay.
So while it doesn't necessarily come into play completely, that extra expense piece can be very important, especially for people that work from home.
Okay. Thank you.
Oh, happy to. Seriously, any question you guys got on your mind? I said I've got a little time. I'm open to any insurance question that thoughts you have. So.
And I have also entered in your contact information in the chat area.
Perfect. Thank you. That was
JR.
going to be my next slide. So.
If you ladies have any further questions that you may even think of after this is all said and done, I'm sure that he would love to talk to you. If you currently do not have business insurance and you want to talk to a broker and possibly sign up with the broker, we highly recommend JR. So I'm sure that he would, again, love to talk to you about that as well.
Always happy to talk.
Well, I just have one last question, because like I said, since we are recording this, I know a lot of people that have rental property. So for those that have rental property that they're renting out to like other homeowners, to other tenants. So do they need something special? Like I have a rental home and I just have like the regular, homeowners insurance. Should they get any other type of insurance? Or is that good?
If you have a rental property
Mhm.
that somebody else is living in, you're renting to them, and you have it covered under a homeowner's policy, you need to change that policy immediately.
Oh,
A homeowner's policy covers your primary residence. The moment you rent that house out to somebody else, it will not afford coverage for you.
oh,
You need what's called a dwelling fire, or sometimes referred to as a landlord policy. But in its purest form, it's a dwelling fire form, and that covers if you rent it out to somebody else.
so will that satisfy the bank? 'Cause, the bank, if you still have
Absolutely. So it's very, very similar to a homeowner's policy,
okay.
but since it's not your primary residence, you're not living in it, you're renting it, it has to be written on a different form.
So I need to be calling you on Monday.
Okay. We can get you fixed up pretty quick on that.
Probably me and a lot of other people.
Yeah, it's not uncommon. I'll have somebody, like I just talked to somebody the other day, they're under contract to buy a new house, but he's not selling his old one. He's going to rent it out. You know what I mean? And we talked about it and I gave him the price. He said, well, it's more money than I'm paying. I'm like, yeah, but that policy you're paying for now has got to go away. It can't stay in the form it's in because it's not going to cover you.
I have a question about that.
Shoot.
Mine is a duplex, and I live on one side and rent out the other side.
Okay.
So would I be still needing a landlord policy, or is the homeowner policy okay for that?
What state are you in?
Texas.
Okay. I'm not 100% familiar with Texas rules, but that's one of those tricky situations because you technically need both. And it depends on how they're going to look at the homeowner policy. You know what I mean? If they're going to cover the whole house under it, you're fine. And then you usually just put there's a liability coverage you can add that in there because you're renting.
Mm-hmm.
That usually will work. But every insurance carrier is going to look at that a little differently. Some won't insure it under a home policy because it's a duplex. Some will require it under a dwelling fire.
All right.
So, yeah, I mean, that's a specific conversation you want to have. You want to make sure your agent knows that it's a duplex and then you're renting out the other side.
Okay.
So, and they'll put you in the right spot. Like I said, because every carrier, I have 10 carriers. They're all going to handle that one a little differently.
That was going to be my next question. If you knew anybody in Texas I could talk to about.
I can probably get you a name. If you want to email me and ask me that question, I can definitely get you a name.
All right.
So I'm involved with a national organization of independent agents like me. So I can definitely get a referral for you down there. And
All
actually,
right.
what part of Texas were you in?
Austin, Central Texas.
Okay. I had 2 clients that were down that way, and I got a buddy who lives down there right now. So beautiful country.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, I'll get your name.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so we will definitely get this information onto our YouTube channel ASAP, because you've given some great information that I'm sure many would need to listen to ASAP, especially for those who are possibly using homeowners insurance for their rental properties. That was, if you could have seen Kim's face when when you said immediately.
Yes,
so we will definitely
immediately. My concern is if you have a loss, you are in big, big trouble.
Yeah, so we will get this video out there so that you can help somebody today. Again, ladies, thank you for joining us. I'm going to stop the share, or did you have something else that you wanted to share with us?
Nope, I was getting ready to do it myself. So,
and I'm going to go back to my screen. And just to let you all know that our next webinar coming up is going to be Small Business 104, Support for Business Women. And it's pretty much us talking about platforms for the professional woman by the professional woman. And we have 3 speakers on that day, August 29th at 12 p.m. We will definitely advertise this information so that you can share with other business women that you know. As we always say here at Cafe Biz, it takes a village, and we believe that that also goes when it comes to you building your business or organization, not just for the children, for all areas of your life. So definitely join us. We're not uninviting the men, so you feel free to come on, or if you know.
yeah, don't want to discriminate.
I don't want any lawsuits. We're not discriminating.
Right. You're free to come. You just might like the content.
But if you know of other professional women's, JR, please send them our way, because we want to share these nuggets with them as well.
Sounds good. I'll get it put on my page for you.
Thank you. And then for those who are not familiar with Cafe Biz, again, check us out on our website. You can also find pictures there. We're a shared workspace as well as an event space. We have spacious and furnished offices, private desks. We have an open area for you to just drop in and work for a change of atmosphere, or to meet with your clients in a more professional setting. We have conference and training rooms. We have workshops and networking events, hence the monthly webinars that you attend so faithfully, and I thank you. And we offer a plethora of amenities to our Cafe Biz members. So Liz, if you're ever out on the Illinois side, Missouri side, we would love to see you and that art, so we can display some of that art here in our building for you.
I can send y'all some. My sister-in-law's family is from Chicago.
Okay, we're about 4 hours from Chicago. We're on that Missouri borderline, so about 15, 20 minutes from St. Louis. But we can make something happen. That's definitely, sky's the limit. And if you haven't followed us on our social media, please do. We're on Facebook, Cafe Biz 618. We're also on Instagram, Cafe Biz 618 Shared Workspace, as well as Twitter. And again, our website is cafebiz618.com. And we want you to support each other. So if you can please put in the chat your business info so that we can make sure that we go and follow, I would love for you to do that. Do we have any questions before we end our session today? All right, we thank you for joining. JR, thank you so much for facilitating this and giving us your time. I'm pretty sure it was precious time, so we are very appreciative. Kim King is our owner here at Cafe Biz. Would you like to say anything?
I know, I really appreciate you taking your time out, JR, for this. We're not sure what happened to the other people, but the good thing is, because of recording, we're going to put it on our YouTube channel. So this will be seen by hopefully a couple hundred people. And matter of fact, our new tenant is just moving in, and I just talked to her about business insurance, and she doesn't have any. So I'm going to give her
We'll
your
solve that
card.
problem for her.
I'm gonna give her your card, and also she was also gonna be talking with State Farm, and I told her, I said, well, State Farm is not the same thing as getting business insurance. So she's gonna talk to you at State Farm so she can make a decision and get some information and be a learning experience for her.
All right, sounds good. I appreciate it, Kim.
But thank you.
Thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you, thank you. Well, this is it, ladies and gents. We thank you again. You have a great rest of the weekend, okay?
Bye-bye, everybody.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye.